Hey, welcome to another episode of Three Conservative Gimps, where we give you the information for you to make an informed decision at the ballot box. We started a bit early. We got a special guest tonight, all the way from Livonia, Michigan. Thaddeus McCotter, will join us shortly. So let's get this show going. Let's welcome my good friend all the way from Muskogee, Oklahoma. He's the ever puffin, HR puffin stuff guy. It's Lloyd Mendenhall. Welcome, welcome.
Hey, Art, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. A little bit cooler today, mostly cloudy, but it was a nice day. So let's bring in Charles. Charles, how you doing?
Good, Art. How are you? Hey, Lloyd.
Hey, Charles.
Everybody in the chat.
All right.
Well, they didn't come out right in the chat.
All right, let's welcome all the way from Michigan, the ever rascable Thaddeus McCotter. Welcome, welcome.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for joining us. So, wow, what a interesting past week. We had an assassination attempt, and we had the RNC, and we had unity. And then all of a sudden, it didn't take a week. It took maybe 3 days. The Democrats are back doing their gaslighting, comparing Trump to Hitler. Right on, guys. And then we have a barking dog in the background. All right. So, and then today, the big bombshell, Joe Biden has dropped out of the race for president. So he will not seek a second term. So he will be, I guess, one of 6 presidents who have not seeked a second term. So, wow. Let's start with Thaddeus. Did you watch RFK Jr.'s speech today?
No, I was busy doing a podcast.
Oh, okay. All right, because I caught the last 30 seconds because I was having an early dinner, and I'm like going, okay, what do you say? Great that Joe's dropping out. Is he going to decide, hey, maybe I could be vice president? I don't know. I looked around on YouTube, and I haven't seen or heard anything on social media what he's going to do next. But it looks like Kamala Harris has the endorsement of Joe Biden, Obama, and the Clintons, I believe, right, Lloyd?
No, she has the endorsement of the Clintons, but not Obama.
Oh,
she has the endorsement of Joe Biden. When he wrote his resignation letter, he said, that was a decision he always thought was the right decision. He fell just short of endorsing her. And within a few minutes of that going up, he turns around and, which he posted on X, he turned around and posted again on X, saying that he was endorsing Kamala Harris and that his delegates should vote for her. And then Hillary and Bill came out congratulating her, and thanking Joe Biden for his long running service and to the nation and blah, 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 and that they were supporting Kamala Harris. Obama says, now we have a chance to do something, and let's see what we can do with it at the convention.
Interesting. And of course, they will bring up age because
they're already doing that.
They're already doing that, and so maybe Trump could pull a Reagan and say, "Well, I am not going to talk about the age and inexperience of my opponent."
Yeah. Yeah, this is going to be weird. And, remember in the 1968 Chicago convention, this is, and I've been saying this for a while, that I saw this turning out to be just like 68 as far as the convention goes, Now, whether they'll vote for, whether in November everybody will vote for Trump. I hope they do.
Yeah.
I think their choice is fairly clear, personally, especially with J D Vance. I think J D Vance brings a lot to the table,
Right.
including, and he's the kind of guy that I was hoping for in a VP pick, and that was the fact that he's a younger guy, and we'll see. We'll see.
Right. Right. And I think also with Biden dropping out, I think that a lot of the delegates he may have might be pissed off that he's doing this and possibly decide to vote for Kennedy. So that could further split, the Democrats' votes even wider. And maybe he could possibly take a state or two. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Thaddeus?
I think this has been a long time coming. I think it was part of the plan probably back in 2020. Joe may have decided, or someone in his camp may have liked the Oval Office and would have wanted to stay a little longer, but that was never in the cards. They waited until after the Republican convention.
What you said.
Put all the attention back on themselves.
Yep.
I think that you had unity within the Democratic Party. That's why you've had Biden endorse Harris. That's why you've had the Clintons come forward. I think Obama's hanging back in reserve just in case that last push is necessary at the convention. I don't know that it will be. I think that the Democrats are very concerned about Donald Trump. So I think that if you're a Democrat, you're going to vote for whoever the Democrats put forward, not because you particularly care for that candidate, but maybe you do. But more importantly, you want to stop Donald Trump from being president again. And I think this was all part of the thinking that went into this back in 2020. They ran a guy and pretend he's a moderate, stick the progressive radical on the ticket, and then get rid of Biden heading into the convention. They did it so that this is the third straight time that the Democratic Party has basically said, we don't like who the base wants, and we're going to put somebody else there. They stiffed Bernie Sanders twice, and then they did it this time because they didn't even give him a chance to have their voices heard in a primary. So if this is what their democracy looks like, I hope everybody's paying attention, because there's not a whole lot of democracy within their democracy. And this is how they treat themselves, let alone their opponents.
Yeah. Yeah.
For Republicans, I think it's actually helpful to a certain extent. I wrote about it this week. Republicans had to avoid overconfidence.
Yeah.
Things were going very well, and the polls started to look okay. I don't believe in polls, but I mean, you could just get the sense, especially after what happened in Pennsylvania with Mr. Trump, that Republicans felt that they had a sense of mission, they had a sense of purpose. They were starting to catch some breaks. But you have to be careful because, as we've seen, events can overcome a lot of things.
Right.
And Republicans have to keep their nose to the grindstone and continue to try to make sure that every single Republican vote is out there to make sure you get it in, and get it cast and get it counted. Because the Democrats are doing the same thing.
And stay on message, too.
Yes, it's about policies. It's going to be very hard for Republicans right now just because they want to get involved in the personality of it. Right. No, it's whose policies are good for the country.
Right.
And that's what we have to keep our focus on, because people who did not like Joe Biden and started to look at Donald Trump were doing so not because Donald Trump has changed, it's because they saw the negative impact of the Democratic policies upon themselves, their neighbors, in the country. And we have to stick with that. It's about policies, not about personalities.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I said last year, I was saying the same thing, that I felt that, if Biden is the nominee or the presumption, that they would wait till close to the convention and he'd drop out, for health reasons, for whatever, he would drop out. I've said that. I've also said that Donald Trump needs to quit the attacks personal and start making about the policy. And so far, he's done a fairly good job of that. I mean, he's really done it, especially I thought his acceptance speech went a long way in that, because he was calling for unity, not only in the party, but in the country. And he might have thrown it, but he never mentioned, but maybe once, and that was only to clarify something, that he actually mentioned Joe Biden, and in that, and it was a long speech. I listened to it. It was long, but it was on point. He might have meandered a little bit, but then, he kind of goes off the cuff anyways, you know. He's so it's but I thought it was in. I've said this before. I said it in 2020. I said it in 22. If anybody can lose this election for the Republicans, it will be the Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
We're good at putting up a good game until the end, and then we do something we get either overconfidence or get off point. And I think that, you know, but this was I'm like you, Thaddeus. I think this was the part of their playbook a long time ago. Let's just, you know, wait until, and I said right after the Republicans have already made their choice and he's confirmed as the nominee, they're going to come out, get somebody younger and get somebody either with Harris that can help her carry it, you know. I think it all comes down to who they pick for VP. That's their next, you know. Will it be Michelle? Will it be our RFK Jr.? Will it be Gavin Newsom, Paulus from Colorado? You know, there's a bunch of people out there that it could be. I've even seen Mitt Romney's name pop up.
Gretchen Whitmer, another one.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think you also have to throw in there. You have to throw in there Andy Beshear, governor of Kentucky.
Right.
And you have to throw in Shapiro out of the governor of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a key state.
Right.
And I think that would give him an edge over Beshear. But basically, they're going to try to put a moderate face on the vice presidential candidate. It may not be a moderate face. Maybe it is if it's Beshear. If it's Shapiro, it's slightly less moderate, obviously. But in the end, I think Shapiro would make a ton of sense because he's coming out of Pennsylvania.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And they also have a Senate. They also have a Senate seat in play. So if he can help to boost up Casey out there too, it would certainly be to their advantage as well.
Right. And so two of our congressmen or congresswoman, one of them, Brittany Pedersen and Jason Crow, also went to Biden just days ago, asking him to drop out. And I'm thinking, wow, they must be worried that their seats might be in play now, because you don't see Neguse and DeGette saying anything, because their seats are safe. They're like 75, 80% Democrat in those two districts, where District 7 is, it slightly leans Democrat, but it could be in play. And 6 used to be Kaufman's district before he lost to Crow. And you got to remember, Crow was the lead in the first impeachment of Trump. And haven't heard anything from Caravello, or the congresswoman from CD8. And that seat is a lean Republican. And we got a pretty good candidate running this time around, unless some libertarian decides to get in, and then because of our stupid GOP party run by some wackos who all of their people they endorse all lost except for 4 people. Will probably try to sabotage the Republicans winning in CD8, because that's just how they are. They're not. It's not a unity thing here in Colorado, because there's a far right wing that doesn't want to become a unity party. They're just about, no, we're going to ram down these staunch conservatives, even if you don't like it. And you got people like Dave Williams that got thumped by Jeff Crank down in CD5, and Ron Hanks lost handily in CD3, which used to be Bobert's district, and she won handily in CD4. And let's see, and their guy that was running for CD8, Janet Joshi, he's a former representative, but he's from Colorado Springs, and he's running for Congress up here in Thornton, which is just north of Denver. So he lost by, oh God, it was a huge margin. It was like 72 to 28. That's how big a margin he lost in that primary. So, so that's what we have to contend with here in Colorado, Thaddeus.
I'm just glad I live in Oklahoma. We're a red state.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
I think in 2022 was the first time in probably the last 4 elections or 5. Yeah, let's see. Since at least 2016 is the first time we had one county that went blue. Other than that, and that was in 2022, and they went blue, but we've been red every county in the state since 2016. So,
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. So I'm real happy with the state I live in.
Good.
We use common sense. We don't have the big city problems. Although we've got a couple of really nice sized cities, Tulsa and all of its outskirts, and Oklahoma City.
Yep.
And but we don't have the problems with I can't say that I've seen anywhere that we've had drag queens going into the library for reading time. I think one library tried that, and before it was all over, the head librarian was fired and replaced with somebody that had some common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And of course that, so we've had, we're a conservative state, but we still, we support the gay community. They have a gay pride thing up every year in Tulsa, and it's a big turnout. It's not it's not obscene. It's just people enjoying a family day out at the park, and they're of that ilk, and so. And we don't have, we had the race riots in 1921, and was it 21 or was it? Yeah, it was 21, I think. And after that, our dynamic shifted. We've learned. We seem to have learned from that, and we seem to have came to our senses after that and built on that. It took a while. It was still rough for a long time, but now we have, I think we have a fairly racially balanced community. Of course, a lot of our state is Native American, because before we were Oklahoma, we were Indian Territory. Just that was our name. That's who we were. And so we have a lot of that, and of course, with the McGirt decision, now I live on a reservation, and I'm not even Indian. So, go figure. But I'm proud of Oklahoma. We seem to. We have our bickering. There's some people love our governor, some people hate him. They just. He likes to pick fights that aren't, sometimes he gets into the wrong dog fights and he needs to back away and let them have the bone once in a while. But overall, we have a fairly balanced state, and I'm proud of that. We've managed to, we support, like when the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa race riot, we supported that. Everybody was behind that. There had a few people they had a march down there, and everything was calm until one group decided. It turned out they were part of the BLM group that had came in from out of state. They broke off and decided to stop, try and stop it, block an interstate. And they surrounded a family in a RV, and real simple, the guy ran them over. And because they were surrounding him, they were beating on the door trying to get it open. He just stomped on the gas and drove through them. and he was not prosecuted. And the people from the Greenwood Historical Society, who was sponsoring because it was the Greenwood district that was destroyed, they were the ones sponsoring the parade. They came out and condemned those that broke off and tried to block the highways. They said that is not us. We want to, we distance our. Mm-hmm. We never asked them to come here, and we told them we didn't want them to be part of us. And so, like I said, we as a state, we seem to have figured out what I wish the rest of the country would. Mm-hmm. But let's just hope America can pull us together. Let's just hope. And like I said before, the Republicans are the ones, if anybody can screw up an election, it'll be the Republicans.
Right. That's right. So who all watched all or part of the convention last week? I bet Thaddeus probably did.
No.
No?
No. Tuesday night softball. They had a bunch of different stuff going on. I'm already voting Republican. So all they could do is try to change my mind.
Right. Well, I watched bits and pieces on YouTube that I could follow, and I'm a big fan of Gutfeld. Well, Thaddeus worked with Greg way back in the day when it was Red Eye, and also The Five. I watched The Five quite a bit, and they'll talk about certain aspects of the RNC, like when Trump's granddaughter spoke, and how Whoopi Goldberg had a conniption saying, she's just trying to humanize him, and you can't do that. Remember that, folks.
And what is he if he's not human?
Yeah, just... And the tribute to that firefighter Comperatore, I think it's his name, who they had his uniform there and his helmet there, and where Trump went up and hugged him, and I thought that was really touching. And they also had a couple people who voted for Biden that are now Trump supporters from New York, where I think one of them, her son was killed by a thug in New York City, where Alvin Bragg decided not to, pursue charges on that guy, but decided to let go of a couple, illegals who beat up on a cop, and decided to go after Donald Trump. And it's like, this is really screwed up, where DAs are, not going after serious crimes and going after these, basically political opponents. And it's really getting to be, it's really wearing thin on me. And I just hope that after November 5th that we could turn this around. I'm just worried that Trump gets elected, BLM and Antifa are going to come right back. I wonder how Trump's going to handle it this time around. Will he call out the National Guard, and then they'll say, "Oh, he's attacking us with the National Guard"? I think it's just a really tough proposition. And I think also on this time around, I think Democrats are going to start talking about crime, how we're going to take care of crime. Well, you had 4 freaking years. Why didn't you do anything about it? You sat around and you let your cities go to hell, and now you're talking about, oh, we could do it better. Oh, jeez. Yeah. So what's going on in Michigan? How are the delegates there? How are the people receiving Trump? I know Michigan is a swing state. Now it's looking like Trump may take that state. So,
Well, I don't know about that. I think we're probably closer to Colorado than we are to Oklahoma. in terms of our elections, certainly purple leaning more towards blue at this point.
Right.
Especially in presidential elections, 2016 was the first time a Republican had won the state of Michigan since 1988.
Wow.
With Bush the first. So if history's any indication, clearly the Democratic Party has a leg up here in Michigan.
Right.
A lot of our voting laws have changed. So a lot of the COVID laws have been enacted and put into the Constitution.
Right.
That will help the Democrats greatly. So I'm not optimistic about Michigan at this point in time. But again, if people are voting on how the policies have affected them, Trump has a very good chance. If they're just going to vote personalities or based upon their perception of Mr. Trump as an agent of chaos, then they'll vote for the Democrat and they'll get more chaos, ironically,
right,
for doing so.
Mm-hmm.
So I would argue that places like Arizona, probably Pennsylvania to a certain extent, certainly Wisconsin are probably more in play than Michigan at this point.
Mm-hmm. About
we'll have to see. We'll have to get a good sense of how the public's
Mm-hmm.
responding. I'm not talking about polls, but just get a sense of how the people are responding to Harris.
Right.
And not necessarily her so much as the method by which she was installed as the nominee.
Right.
Absent a primary. Because there is no primary.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is when it's the last time. You might make an argument that Eisenhower over Taft might have been the last time an actual candidate was nominated at a convention rather than through the primary process. Remember, JFK was the first one who really ran the primary process to get the nomination.
Right.
And so Nixon won the primaries to beat Rockefeller, I think back in '60.
Right.
And then I think the same thing with Goldwater back in '64. He won the primaries, not the convention so much, right? So
Right.
I think that the last time might have been the '50s, since you've actually had a convention do the nominating as opposed to the primary process.
Right.
And I don't think the Democrats, again, they stiffed Bernie Sanders in 2016. They stiffed him in 2020. And now they're going to stiff the Democratic primary voters again in 2024. Again,
Right.
Their democracy isn't one.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's more about anointing somebody to.
Well, this is also a party. If you think about it, Art, Charles, Lloyd, when you think about it, the Democratic Party, they talk about our democracy, and yet this is the party that continually wants to centralize the power of the sovereign people within an administrative state.
Mm-hmm.
They can micromanage every aspect of your life. There's nothing democratic about that.
Yeah, right.
Unless you count the first delegation of your sovereign power, and then it's gone forever, which has never been the intent of the Constitution.
Right.
So the Democrats believe they're actually kind of inverting the entire premise of the Revolution of 1776. That was the king was on the top, the people were on the bottom. We switched it. We put the people on the top, the government on the bottom. Well, the entire history of the Democratic Party in the 20th century is trying to re-establish the pyramid with the government on top,
right,
and the people on the bottom. So the Democratic Party is not democratic, and one of the first indications should be how they've managed the last 3 presidential elections to nominate somebody despite the wishes of their primary electorate.
Yeah, they. It's let's just like I said. I hope the people are paying attention. Let's hope that, like I said, I've talked with Art and Charles about this, ad nauseum over the last 6-7 months since last year sometime, that this would be the case, that as soon as the convention was over, we'd have something. Once we had picked the old guy, they were going to come back with somebody younger, and it's just that the only saving grace, I think. And I'm not even sure yet, because my knowledge of J D Vance is not as well. I'm not as well versed in his background, but I like it. And what I see on the surface. You know, he's got the right thing. I think one of the biggest things I saw that was great was when Donald Trump. Did you guys see any of the rally yesterday? Watch any of that?
I watched a little bit of it. Yeah.
When he brought that union guy up that he remembers from back at another time he spoke in Pennsylvania or wherever he was at.
He was in Michigan.
He was in Michigan. That's right. He was in Michigan. That's why I was thinking of this, because you're from Michigan and you were talking about the Michiganians. Is that what you call yourselves?
Yes, Michiganian, Michigander.
Yeah.
Michiganders. Well, anyways, whatever you call, you know, we're Oklahomans. It's easy to say, you know, or Coloradans. That's easy to say too. These other names I get tongue tied. But anyways, when they brought that unit, when he remembered that guy, said, "Hey, didn't I see you? Aren't you the?" And he brings him up on stage, you know, and it was like it was a pivotal moment, I thought, showing, you know, and guy was from the United Auto Workers, and I guess the president of the United Auto Workers has come out and says he wants all car manufacturers to produce electric cars now. So by 2034 or some obscure
wave the magic wand.
Yeah, wave the magic wand. Yeah, let's, you know, whatever. And but I thought with this union guy, you know, and also when the we had the president of the AFL-CIO, the Teamsters. I'm sorry, the Teamsters. Would have been really big if it been AFL. But when the head of the Teamsters comes out and speaks at the convention for the Republicans, I think those are two things that are key. But I really liked that how he pulled that off yesterday, bringing that. It wasn't just all right. I see the guys. You know, he remembered the guys, you know, and they had this little conversation back and forth, talking about humanizing. You can't get much more human than something like that, you know. And I don't know what Whoopi's problem is with humans, but apparently she has one because she doesn't want Trump to be one. So
right.
It would be bad if Trump was a human, I guess. I don't know.
I'm getting the sense that Whoopi may have to take down her "hate has no home" lawn sign.
Yeah. 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 She's I used to really enjoy her stuff. I was one of these guys that, politics aside, I would watch a show or watch a movie because I enjoyed I want to get, you know, I wanted entertainment. I wanted escapism. I didn't want to be preached at. More and more now, I find myself going back and watching, you know, I've been watching the King Kong and Godzilla movies because there's no political agenda with them.
Yep.
Right.
They're trying to destroy the world or each other. That's all there is, you know, but no politics involved. So it's escapism. That's what I watch a movie for, to get away from the humdrum life that we lead in the nastiness we see on television, you know.
Right.
But so there's hope for Michigan. They got at least one guy that, you know, he said, "I promise we're going to get, I don't know, 85,000 or 850 or 8.5 million people out to vote. Let's get out and do our job," you know. And he's right. And that's all we can do. Get out and do your job. You know, vote, you know.
Yep.
I served this country, and I served it with pleasure and with honor, and I did it so that people would have the right to be like Whoopi if they want to be. But I also served with the idea that everybody has a right, you know. It's not just, it's a privilege, but they have the obligation to vote. I feel that every American, if they want to if they truly want to be American, they're going to get out and vote, you know. And I believe that. And, you know, fortunately, I'm old, and I may not see the way the country finally goes, you know, in the end. You know, hopefully I'll be long gone before that happens. But I say a prayer every night that this country will be guided in the right direction. And I've got my fingers crossed. And I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan of Trump running again. I wanted to see somebody younger. Right. You know, like DeSantis or
Nikki Haley.
No,
not
Nikki Haley. No, I wasn't a fan of hers.
Oh, Rubio.
Maybe Rubio, or the governor of Texas,
Oh, Abbott.
Abbott. Yeah,
Yeah.
he would have. Boy, he would have checked off several boxes. You know, he's a governor. He's in a wheelchair. You know, and
Yep.
yeah. If we have to have boxes, you know, let's make sure we got the guys. And the good thing about J D Vance is he came from a poor background. Have you guys watched that Hillbilly Elegy?
No, I
Read
haven't.
the book.
No.
It's worth a
haven't.
watch. It's worth a watch. He comes from a pretty, you know, his family was originally from Kentucky, and his mother moved and grandmother moved to Ohio, and his grandma, and he'd go down and spend the summertime in Kentucky and get in touch with his, you know, grew up with his family down there during the summer, and they're hillbillies. You know, they're just good old and there ain't nothing wrong with hillbillies. They're pretty good people for the most part. My wife was a hillbilly, and you know, I was very blessed to have her all the years I did, because she taught me a lot. I came from Colorado. You know, I grew up in Colorado, and I had this idea that Colorado was the center of the United States, and everything rotated around us. You know, she disabused me of that thought real quick. And it was for good, you know, it was all for the good, you know. And so if you get a chance, it's on Netflix, watch that Hillbilly Elegy, and because or read the book. Hey, there's an idea. People still read, don't they?
Yeah. Or you get an audiobook. Yep.
There you go. If you don't want to read, get the audiobook. I'm sure it's available on Amazon or any of those other types of streaming services, you know. But
will they have somebody with the southern drawl doing the audio book?
Yeah.
And, you know, I grew up and
God, I hope not. Well, see, it just goes to show you, even hillbillies can lose the accent. J D Vance does not. I mean, I probably got a worse accent than what he does.
Mhm.
You know.
Well, I think he was Yale Law School too.
Well, that's true too. Yeah. And he went to Ohio. Was it Ohio State?
Ohio State. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not everybody can go to U of M. So.
Yeah. He'd been better if came from OU, but you know, I won't hold it against him. But
so, yeah, go ahead.
Go right ahead. Okay. Move on.
All right, I was just going to talk about the vitriol that may have contributed to the shooting last week, and how the gaslighting in the past 8 years. You know, you might have turned somebody a little nutty upstairs, and you got one guy that just got through the cracks and almost killed a guy. I mean, he almost killed the candidate, but did manage to kill a bystander and seriously wound a couple others. And you would think the Democrats would realize how this is going to come back to bite them in the butt, but they can't see it within themselves that they might be responsible for some of this stuff. And how this all came about, how, oh yeah, let's don't guard that building, it's got a slope on it. Well, sure shit, some 20-year-old kid with an AR-style weapon managed to get off several rounds before he was taken down. And the Secret Service guy, what was his name, Jonathan Willis, who said, yeah, I saw that guy. I had him in my sights, and I was told not to shoot. And now he's out of a job because he disobeyed orders. What, you're going to wait until he kills more people? That's just stupid. You know?
Well, the thing with the Secret Service is they've always had, if there was a shooter possibility, they had, up until this point, they've always had an open ticket. They've been like James Bond, License to Kill sort of thing.
Right.
It was never in question. They took them out, rather than, but there's a lot of stuff that's not adding up,
Right.
There's just, I've been listening to some of the audio tapes that are coming out now, or some of the audio profiling that's being done, and it's a little weird, to say the least.
Yes.
And I think it's a huge black eye on the Secret Service. They dropped the ball. I don't care whether they were leaving it up to the local law enforcement to fill the gaps that they didn't have the manpower for.
Right.
It doesn't, it just doesn't make sense. There's so many things, when did he plant the rifle? When did he have time to plant it?
Yeah.
Now, I saw a video where they're talking about, well, it had all the little dots and the lines and where they were and all this, and photos of the places there. And this one guy was going on and said, well, they over here, it shows, there was a ladder there, and they think he got up there and then jumped across and went over there. But the ladder's not in the picture now. And I'm sitting there looking at the same picture. And I said, well, you idiot, the ladder's right there. I can see the ladder in that picture. What are you looking at? Or what, did they move the ladder for the picture? I don't know. But there are just so many problems with all of it. The Secret Service, and bless their hearts.
Yeah.
Which anybody that knows me knows what that means, but bless their hearts. Them ladies, did any of you see the Ghostbusters remake with the 4 gals? That was an extreme flop. Well, the gal who was the one that couldn't figure out which side her gun holster was on and was running around, jumping around like she reminded me of one of the gals off that Ghostbuster movie. And she was about as successful of being a Secret Service agent as they were being Ghostbusters, or of making a hit movie out of it. That movie was made to be PC. Those women there were made to be PC. Same results. Movie was a flop. Their job was a flop. And on top of that, when they've got Trump covered, there's photos of her. She hadn't even gotten up there yet. She was hiding. She was hunkered down hiding on the stairs. She hadn't even got up on top. Here, all these other agents piled on top of him, and she was hunkering down watching. Sorry, I'm for equal rights, but I think of what Gutfeld said, in which he says, Tyrus and I were talking one day. Tyrus says, I can be your bodyguard, but you can't be mine. Because Tyrus is about twice the size, both in height, width, weight, of what Gutfeld is. If Tyrus Phil, Gutfeld, even if he crawled on top of Tyrus, he's still going to be able to shoot the snot out of Tyrus, because it's just, there are certain things that and my understanding is that some of those women weren't even actual, they were frontline trained service agents. They worked for the Secret Service as analysts, or but they put them in position. It's just, and then we got the former PepsiCo CEO that is now the head of the Secret Service. What's with that? Anyways, a lot of questions to be answered. I don't know if they ever will. Probably, and the first thing I said is, right after it happened, I said, everybody start checking the grassy knoll, because you know where this is going.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, JFK Jr. has Secret Service now.
RFK Jr.
Well, oh God, JFK Jr. He's dead too. RFK Jr.
Secret Service wouldn't have helped him.
Yeah, so they're gonna. Yeah, it took a shooting for RFK Jr. to get Secret Service.
But
Crazy.
one of the worst things that it does is it continues to undermine the public's confidence in institutions.
Yep.
Institutions that people had thought were, regardless of some of the political stuff we've seen, well, at least we know the Secret Service can do their job. And now that's been thrown into question. And then the refusal to answer questions or to submit to at least some kind of questioning. You saw some of the senators were very frustrated with how some of the eventual questions did not occur. So it's just on top of everything else. This, obviously, the tragedy of the individual being killed, the danger that it could have been for some type of violence in the country had he been assassinated, or violence down the road should any type of assassination occur. Now that's even been heightened with the question of, can the Secret Service help prevent this in the future, or are they just as bad as everything else? I would think that they should be as open as possible so we can avoid a lot of the conspiracy and a lot of the garbage that you're going to see. Not only conspiracy here from the American people, but you're also going to have foreign actors trying to pump disinformation and kind of conspiracy things to agitate and divide Americans against each other and to throw discredit upon American institutions for their own country's benefit. So it's a very dangerous time, and it's a time where we need absolute honesty and transparency, and we don't seem to be getting much, certainly not in this instance.
Right. And also, one of the weird things is they complained about Donald Trump's bandage at the convention. Why was he doing that? He's just showing off. That goes to prove never buy pillows from Temu.
I would argue that it would have been far more politicizing of the event had he not worn it, and you could see the scar, you could see the stitches, you could see the damage, as opposed to putting a bandage on it. Yeah, if you really wanted to bring attention to it, you would do that. But again, they're just going to complain about whatever. It doesn't matter. There are people who are paid to complain. Both sides have them.
Oh yeah,
paid to complain about the other side, and they will. The problem is for a lot of Republican populists, is that so many of these people are actually in what they would allege to be the mainstream media, where they're really just partisans under another garb, and a far more hypocritical and deceitful one at that.
Right. And the Democrats have a 20-year-old social media influencer, Harry Sisson. Have you ever seen him on TikTok? I mean, he looks like a dweeb. I think he's got makeup on because it looks like he's got rosy cheeks on. Like, it just, and this kid is getting paid $200,000 to be a shill for Joe Biden.
He's getting paid $200,000 to go onto TikTok, which is tied to the communist Chinese regime, which is sucking up information about Americans every single time that people are on it. And the Biden administration should not be facilitating the Chinese communist government getting more information about Americans, especially our young people, who then get trapped in an algorithm, which by the disinformation of the regime is then pumped right back into them. So, call me crazy. I don't do TikTok, and I don't do TikTok should be banned in the United States.
I agree. Art keeps sending me these really great videos. Unfortunately, they're on TikTok, and I don't do TikTok. So you're going to have to find them on YouTube or on X because, or on True Social.
True Social.
Currently, there's some American investors that are trying to buy TikTok. One of them was Kevin O'Leary. Was one of them.
Yeah.
So
I just find TikTok is, I don't care who owns them. I find that it's dumbing down. I mean, it's like that generation is already dumb enough. I mean, come on, Tide Pods, really? Okay. Just going back a few years, and I feel that TikTok is going to the lowest common denominator, and that's somebody that's got an attention span of a gnat, because that's all it is. 30 seconds. And that's why I don't do shorts. That's why I don't do TikTok. That's why I don't do any of that. I like something that's got a little meat to it, something that I might even be required to read, like True Social or X,
Right.
I refuse to call it Twitter. It's now X, and I'm not going to. Yeah.
Yeah, I rarely do any of that. I would never do TikTok precisely because of who owns them.
Exactly.
Kids are gonna be kids. You hope
Yeah.
that they grow out of it. They hope that they get a longer attention span, but that's everybody. I also have very grave concerns about AI and other stuff. But
Right.
in terms of these kids, I think they're smart kids. They're just not. They're just getting bad information from everywhere else, and there seems to be a deliberate. The thing that I miss. I'm going to sound old again, but I remember growing up where it was harder, it was easier to find Penthouse in a 7-Eleven than it was National Review. And so naturally, being me, I would go try to find National Review because I would see Buckley on PBS and I'd say, what's this guy talking about? What's this National Review? And I would start to read that. And then I would go from there into some of the books like Russell Kirk, Edmund Burke, those types of things. So you would get the foundational documents of the conservative movement. These kids, all they're getting now are talking points, courtesy of Fox News or MSNBC. They're not getting any real depth or substance to what they're actually spouting and believing on both sides. And so it becomes very frustrating when you see even people on your own side don't quite understand why they're wrong or why they may be misinformed, because they'll just see the top end talking point and won't know what's underneath it. And the frustrating part to me, for both Republicans and Democrats, is believe what you want to believe, but at least know why you do. And then we can have a conversation. But if not, then it becomes a question of, as we've talked about, not about policies or about principles. It becomes about personalities. And then you're basically, what you're doing is you're not arguing what is best for the country in terms of the governance. What you're arguing is which band do you like, because music's subjective. And there's no right answer. If you're arguing personalities, there's no real good answer because it's all subjective. If you're arguing policies, you can be objective about it. And I think your dog agrees with me.
Yep.
Bark if you agree.
So Greg Horvey says, honestly, I wish our party was as intellectual as Buckley was. That's right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that
a lot of the party is clearly that individual was, because he's absolutely right. But what you don't get is you don't get exposed to it as much, and you have to go root it out and find it. And a lot of the kids don't know that you need to find it.
Right.
Like I grew up with in a house of teachers. My father didn't burn the Communist Manifesto. He told me to read it and quote, know my enemy, end quote. So I read it. So I understand the left. I've gone through their documents. I've gone through Rousseau. I understand why they believe what they believe. I understand it. I don't agree with it, but at least I understand it because it allowed me to understand why I believe in what I believe in. It helped to shape and form that. I don't see a whole lot of that going on these days.
Right.
You're not going to find it on TikTok either. There are.
That's right. I read the Communist Manifesto by Marx and Mein Kampf, and I read those when I was in junior high, and that's how I learned, about the left. And then when I was in high school, one of the things we had to read was Rules for Radical. And when I read that, oh God, it just turned my stomach. It's like, oh God, what is this garbage? It's just so, and it's like now the left is using that. It's like take a point, radicalize it, and go with it. And it's like, yep, that's from Rules from Radicals, and that was who was that? Was that Noam Chomsky?
No. Noam Chomsky was a professor. I think it was at MIT or Harvard.
Yeah,
he was a huge influence on the New Left and later on. The guy you're talking about he came out of Chicago. He hung out with Capone. He was a newspaper writer.
Right.
Hillary Clinton wrote her a thesis about him. I think when she went to the mayor. Saul Alinsky. That's right.
Yeah, Saul Alinsky.
I'm getting old. It took me a little while to get there.
So I when I was in junior high, I had leg braces on, and I didn't quite fit in with the regular kids, so I spent a lot of time in the library reading intellectual stuff like Karl Marx and Mein Kampf, and also my interests were like the space program. Learned a lot about not just our space program, but the Soviet space program, and the history of rock and roll, and how some of the bands that I was listening to then are like, they started way back in the 60s when they were another band, like the Yardbirds, where they had stars at their infancy, like Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page. And that band, they broke up and evolved into Led Zeppelin, which became a pretty prolific and big band and was a big influence on later bands that came out in the 80s and 90s. And how, the Hollies, one member left and he started CNY, yeah.
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, yeah.
Young, yeah.
Graham Nash left the Hollies. Yeah.
Yep, Graham Nash, yep. So, I'm a big history buff, and now on YouTube I've been seeing these shorts about Theodore Roosevelt, and I'm like, I want to watch that movie. Where do I find it? Because I find Theodore Roosevelt to be an interesting president to follow.
Was it Edmund Morris? Was it him who wrote the big biography not too long ago about Theodore Roosevelt?
But yeah, and when Trump picked Vance, I posted that on Facebook, and one of my high school friends who's left of Sanders says, "Oh, why did he pick Vance? Why didn't he stay with Pence?" I'm like, well, there's no rules that says he has to stay with Pence, and maybe he wanted to build the bench.
There's no
younger players, get that bench build up, and because right now we're going through all the old folks have had their time. Like you had Reagan, you had Bush and Mondale, and then Obama was the young guy. Now he's in his 60s now, or close to 60, and
he's over 60.
Yeah, he's over 60. Yeah.
And out of all of those former presidents, Trump's hair has never gone snow white. His hair looks great. Everybody else looks like hell now after they've been president. But yeah, so now it's time to. It's sort of like sports, when a team has had a dynasty of really good players, and they're kind of waning a little bit. They got to bring up and build up their bench. They get people from the state legislature and start building up a team. Make them either congressmen or senators, or get them involved and higher up in the party, and then they eventually somebody becomes president. Maybe they'll get picked to be in the cabinet. So there might be hope for you, Thaddeus.
No. Recovering politician.
Okay.
Recovering politician.
Yeah, I
got
get
these
you.
things. I don't need anything. I'd rather play with those than with a pen and pencil.
Right. I'm sort of the same way. I've had my taste of politics, and I'm enjoying kind of being behind the scenes and putting out information. Having this show. I started this in 2010 as a internet radio show. Did that for a while. Went on hiatus for about a year or two, brought it back. Was solo for a while, and then Lloyd joined me, and then Mike Roach joined us, and then we decided, oh wow, we're all disabled. Let's call it the Three Conservative Gimps. And Mike Roach left, and then we brought in Charles, and he's he's kind of the silent Bob of the show. So,
but when Charles says something, it's worth stopping to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one that will really he'll call me on my BS if I get carried away or I go down a path or I misstate something the way it should be, and the way I meant it to be comes out different, So he'll call me on that and make me back up and think, and that's what Charles. He's sort of the anchor there. He kind of keeps he's the guy at the end of the tug of war that sits there. He's the anchor that holds it in place, and if his strength and prowess is needed, well, he's there for us. So.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Lloyd, I want to thank you so much for all the BS that you just laid out for justifying my existence on the show.
As I said, he calls me for what he calls BS on me all the time. Lord knows I need it too.
Well, guys, we've managed to do a little over an hour. I want to thank everybody in the chat for coming. Jay Bird, Joey. We got Mark R. White, Greg Horvey, and we got Ronnie from God Bless America, and Andrew, and John Procut, and we got Joe from Joe America, USA Drone Flyer.
Steve Knowles.
Yep, Steve Knowles, and the rest on Gilligan's Isle. So thank you all for coming. Have a great week, and stay safe out there, and catch you next time. Don't forget my show on Saturday, Art Code Drone Solutions, and maybe you'll win something. By the way, Lloyd, you're getting something in the mail. So have a great week. Good night, y'all.
Good night.
Good night, folks.